Hi guys, today I want to do a short guide on the event that we have right now going. So it's been very fortunate event for me because I was able to collect a lot of gold, get some gems as well. So before this I was always low on gold. I was collecting money through daily missions and challenges. And um, the previous event was included Jagatai, which I played quite decently, and also had Magnus. And well, I don't really consider myself to be an expert in either of them. So, for example, my friend plays a lot of Magnus, and I didn't want to run up against people who are very good at Magnus while I would be clueless, you know. And so I decided to wait out. And the current event, it's very good in terms of teaching people how to play the game correctly, and it entails not only the event play, but it also entails some of the games that you might play when you're just starting, when you don't have a lot of cards to create combo decks, and where value and trading is are the most important things, you know. So I will go through some of the concepts with which I guide myself. So how I choose my deck, how I play it out, and maybe I will find one of the games that I played, and I will explain it. You know. So number one thing, of course, when we enter is to pick the warlord, and you really want to be really careful here. And maybe the first time you enter the event, you want to take just one ticket and just scout the area, see which warlord has which cards and which decks are running around, so you can spot something that's overpowered like that. And so that's I think the first recommendation that I have. You know, just try to see the field and try to find a warlord which has a good faction. You know, so if it's a chaos warlord, it's not gonna be too good probably, unless you're playing against some Imperial Army and Mechanium warlords. Then it's not good because those factions on their own do not have all the necessary tools to really succeed, you know. And so maybe it's something from Ruinstorm, it's perfect. If it's Blood Angels, it also can be devastating as well. So you should always watch out for that, and you should also think about like the what you're used to playing in the normal game mode. The kind of decks you're usually playing in the normal mode will not appear in the events. So you want a warlord which will have like strong faction cards on their own, and which will be a strong warlord on his own. You know, for example, if you have Kabanda, which is my main warlord, and I finished the last season 17th. I was mainly playing it. So this season I didn't play today. I was in top 10. Sucks. Okay. Um, this season I used Garvia Loken, by the way, to get to top 50. I played a little bit of Jagatai as well, and I will be sharing both of those decks. And though these two decks are perfectly viable, you can get to high Terra very easily. So this is the first one, and you can take a screenshot, you can build it on your own, and basically you stall the game. Or if you have an opportunity, you just go for the opponent's throat. You know, so you should always adapt your gameplay. And this one is a very good deck, and I will show you also the Garvia Loken. Um, yeah, let's see. Congratulate me on Engrom, by the way. I didn't have him, so thank you, shop, for putting him twice. Yeah, this isn't my deck. Looks pretty strange. This is an event deck. Let me see which one is the one that I use for myself. I think this is the one. Yeah, this is the one. So as you can see, it's very creature heavy, and it has a lot of threat, you know. So a lot of these cards, when you put them on the board, your opponent doesn't want to ignore them, you know. For example, this one, it has a drop pod. I don't know why it won't show up. Chondon Squad, I think everybody knows it, and a lot of these cards are very here it is. So 6/3, who can ignore 6 damage, you know. And it has a drop pod, so it's not easy to kill. And so this one, you just control the board. It plays a lot like a lot of the events, you know. Like you always think about trading in a way that's efficient, you know. So first thing that you want to do in an event is you want to choose a warlord who is strong on his own. So for example, Kabanda would be a very strong choice because the warlord himself has 40 health and he does 3 damage on his turn. So no matter how bad your cards are, you might still win, you know, simply because of the 3 damage, you know. And second thing that I like to look at is the mana curve, you know. So this is a very good example of a deck with a healthy mana curve, this Garvia Loken. So let me demonstrate it, what I mean under the mana curve. So every turn you have something to play. So on turn 5, for example, like this is general rule, you know. So these rules can be broken a lot of times, but they're still rules, you know. So you most of the time want to play the same mana cost creature that you have mana for, you know. So if you have 6 mana, you want to play a 6 mana creature. If you have 7 mana, you want to play a 7 mana creature, or 3 and 4 combined. You want to use your mana completely, and oftentimes you will find a situation where 2 cards accomplish the same function, but one of them does for 1 extra mana, and in that case you use the one which uses more mana, because then you can combine the other one with other cards. And at the same time, what I also want you to keep in mind, if you have a choice between, for example, on turn 3, right? So you have 2 choices. You can play a 1 mana card and a 2 mana card, or you can play a 3 mana card. So sometimes it's wise to just drop the 3 mana card unless it's very crucial to play the 1/2, which oftentimes will be, but you know, like, let's say an exception, because that 1 mana card and 2 mana card are easier to combine with other cards, and you will be getting a lot of value, you know. So the trick in these events, in most of the time, unless it's like something like very aggro, or it's something like very strange like the Magnus one last time, is to make your opponent's life as uncomfortable as possible, and to make him use on your creatures more mana than you use, you know. So if it takes your opponent, for example, a 4 mana spell and a 2 mana hero power to kill your 4 mana card, then you just used 4 mana for something that for which your opponent had to spend 6 mana, right? So this game is a little bit like a battlefield, you know. So you're constrained by your mana, and you're constrained by the amount of cards that you have in hand. You want cards, like in general, which have the most punch for their mana cost, and at the same time you want to have enough cards in your hand so that you can continue playing, you know. So you don't want to be on turn 10 and end up with a 2 mana card, you know. So that's a recipe for disaster usually. So you should have a good arena deck is going to have a lot of card draw, or healthy amount of card draw, or it will have a good mana curve like this one. So Garvia Loken has both because it's a constructed deck, so I did what I wanted to do. But unless it's a very clear aggro warlord, you should avoid the ones that don't have any card draw and don't have any heavy creatures, you know. So I have both heavy creatures, you can see them here, and I also have some card draw. Loken here starts with an extra card, and we have Chariot here. We have 2 of these, which is a very good card in my opinion, 3/2 with a drop pod. And you know, like, it's, in terms of value, it produces a lot of value, you know. And Arcology is like, it's one of the best control cards that we have, because lots of warlords are very phobic to having any kind of board, and like, for example, Jagatai, right? So you don't play anything, that's the point, you know, like, and you get a transform because of that. Maybe I should maybe we should enter one, and I will show you what I mean under choosing the correct faction. But I think I want to save my time. I don't really feel like doing that, so okay, let's do it. Fuck it. Let's see. We have how many warlords do we have here? We have Aster Krone. So now we will be going through the warlords, right? So this one is Blood Angels. Blood Angels have a lot of very strong cards. This one has 30 health, which is not very good. Medium initiative, which is decent in this event. And one of the more important things is initiative in this in the events in general, you know. So if you're playing Venerable Jophiel against one of these warlords, you're gonna be at a bit of a so this one is I don't know about this one, but you will be at a disadvantage against Blood Angels because your opponent will have similar cards, but he will be able to put them out earlier than you. So we'll look at the initiative, and what do we have here? We have Mutant Astartes, gain a Demon Host. So we think about Demon Host, right? So what traits will it get? So it might get three Survivor, which is most of the time it will just leave you and you didn't get anything. You might get Wings and Unstoppable, which is decent, but it's not any value, and you deal 1 damage to all units in play, and it's Ward Bearers. Okay, so Ward Bearers does synergize with killing your own creatures, but you shouldn't be too combo dependent. So here we have Samus, it's Ruinstorm. Ruinstorm has some of the strongest control cards in this game. And I think in this case I'll be making choice between Venerable Jophiel, which has one super strong deck, and Samus, because it's Ruinstorm. So I don't know, it's a toss-up between these two. But I will be going with Samus. Even though Venerable Jophiel or Jophiel, I don't know how you pronounce it, I'm sorry. I'm not really sure about this, but even though Jophiel has the strongest deck in this event, which is, I think, Demon Crusher, it's ridiculous, you know, like you have all the best legendaries of this warlord, of this faction, and it's just, I don't know how to describe it. This one, you're more guaranteed, you know, like you have some Chaos Furies, you have some, you're gonna have some creatures which have very high value, and you can use them to overpower your enemy, you know. So I think we'll be going with Samus. I earned like 12 wins with this one. I'm very happy with it. It has a high initiative, which is an advantage, and Whispers of Madness is useful in some situations and can't attack. With this you can abuse the opponent's high drops very easily, you know. So if you drop something that costs 7 mana, well, you can't use it anymore. So let's try Samus. So let's go through these 3 decks, okay? So we have Unspoiled Land, we have 11 Toxic and 19 Troops, right? So Void Engagement isn't very good. It does 0.9 damage on average, and you spend 1 mana for it. This healing is good in specific decks. I'm sorry, just a moment. So I already know which one I'm gonna choose, but anyway, let's go through them. You know, so healing is good in specific decks where you're trying to rush your opponent down, where you don't want to be stunned. But in this case, not so much, you know. And we are not taking this, so we don't like it, right? So Kerbasi, this also, so 1 mana gain a mutation, which is fine, but if you gain a mutation, you cannot attack. And this is even worse because you gain a Mark of Chaos, which isn't as good as mutation. It's not consistent, it's pretty terrible, you know, and it's only 3 health. We don't want to mess with this. This is also a very cheesy card, and you have to take into account that there are a lot of Blood Angels, you know, so you have to think in context. So if your opponent is playing Blood Angels and he drops something with a drop pod, you just wasted 3 mana to remove his drop pod. So this is a good card. Okay, this is perfect. This one of this, I even have it in constructed because sometimes you shouldn't put anything on the board, and this just gives you time to just buff your creatures, you know, like you're making it hard, making your opponent's life harder, and I don't have a lot of card draw there, so this often gives me a lot of value, you know. So this is a decent card. This is good if you have some Plague Toads and Rot Flies, which we don't have. This is a terrible card because this is 4 mana 3/4, and what we really perfect scenario is 4 mana 4/5. Okay, so 4 mana 4/5 is perfect, but this one, it just dies to everything and it has 3 damage. So this one is a good card. You will not, in this event particularly, you don't have a lot of anti-stealth, and if you put 1 mutate on it, so even Joker Company can deal with it, so it's very good. This one is a very bad card as well. So if you think about it theoretically, right, so you're thinking, maybe I can buff with it like 10 times and you're happy about it, but how often is it gonna happen? So this is the situation that I described before, you know, like cards with good stats are like big tanks, you know, and cards with bad stats and like interesting text are smaller tanks that can do backflips, you know. So doing a backflip is cool, but at the end of the day, you would probably rather have a big tank if you want to win the game, you know. So um, it's not a universal rule. So a lot of times, as you go higher on the ladder, the rule kind of inverses. The text becomes more important. But in the beginning, you want, like when you're starting the game, you don't have a lot of cards. You want to have healthy creatures, and this is not healthy creatures. So this one is a very good card. Okay, 4 mana, 3/5, 5 health is very important. It has 3 damage. It has a useful relentless ability, decent removal, 2 defense satellites, and 5 mana 8-fold brand, which Cygnus Cult Troops, they're not very good, you know, like they don't have very good stats. This is a decent card. This is a decent card. This is a decent card. So I almost clicked it, Jesus. So this is also a very cheesy card if you don't have a silence. If you're playing against, like, imagine you're playing against Samus, and you drop this, it has 7 maintenance and he hero powers it. You're done. So it's not the best card, you know. So this one also costs 10 mana. It doesn't do anything when you drop it, and its rage is gained +2, you know. So your opponent can kill it without any repercussions. It doesn't have a taunt. It's not a very good card, you know. So it's not bad, but compared to some others, but like this deck doesn't have a lot of card draw. It has a lot of AoE, which is more of a response. You know, like when you're losing or when you're very far ahead and when your opponent drops a lot of stuff, then you want to be using. But this doesn't help you like really win a lot of games, and that's what we are trying to do, right? We are not trying to win 50%. We are trying to win as much as possible. So let's go through this one now. So this one lacks card draw. It has a lot of low quality cards. It's very slow because of this. Like you don't have any 5 drops. So if it's turn 5 and you are ahead on the board, you find that's a good situation, right? So what you want to be doing then, you want to be putting another 5 mana creature so that you make a snowball effect. You know, like you drop a bigger creature, you get even more advantage. And this one, it's not gonna give you anything like that, you know. So this is not a manifesto against defense satellites, but you need actual creature, you know. So you're not playing some kind of like Angron or something where it makes sense to just try to remove enemy creatures. You are trying to have the board control. You don't have any burst here, right? So terrible one. So here, this one has a Rotfly. This is not a very good card in my opinion. It has a Relentless, and it just reduces the mana cost, which is decent, but it's a 2 mana 1/3, which is bad stats, and it cannot attack, so it's not a threat on its own. This is a decent card. You can choose whatever you want. This is a good turn 2 play. Cultist Acolyte, not very good. 2 health, dies to every Warlord's attack. Seek and Destroy is decent. Chaos Fury is a very good card. It's very versatile. It can be good when you are behind, and it can be good when you're ahead. You can make it annoying, you can give it a lot of damage, so whatever you want. This is a decent card. 3 mana 2/3, it's terrible. Okay, so if you use that 1 mana cost ability, you put a 2 cost cultist. You're not guaranteed to get the best cultist, by the way, and you can't attack with it if you use the hero power. So you have to think about it as well. You know, like it has very bad stats. It's not gonna do like a lot of other creatures will trade with it favorably, and you're done. You know, so this is a very situational card and a decent card in my opinion. So I have one of these in my constructed Kabanda deck, and the reason for it is that sometimes I just wait until turn 3. I don't drop anything on turn 1 until turn 2. For example, in Kabanda versus Kabanda or against Rome, and you just drop it, and then you have something that can kill something like for 4 damage and then survive, you know, and the opponent has to deal with it. So it's a very good, decent card, but situational. So this is a very good card. This is a horrible card. It's 3 mana 4/2. You're using a card. So we said that we have mana constraint and we have card constraint, right? So you can think of the opponent, the Warlord health as some kind of a resource, you know. So the opponent will take maybe 2 damage in the good scenario to kill it. It will die to a lot of AoE, by the way, and you're just losing your the value, you know, like there is no value. You pay 3 mana to deal 4 damage to the enemy, but you lose a card, and a lot of times it will just get removed very easily. And if your opponent has board control, that's gonna cost you a lot more than like doing 4 damage to the enemy. You know, like you want something that sticks to the board. Breach, I don't know. Blood Angels don't play any tones. This Ruinstorm decks don't play too many tones either, so it's not very useful. 3 mana, like 5 damage. Okay, sometimes it's decent. It's not like super like crazy or something, but 2 damage it's just terrible. So we spoke about this. This one is decent. So putting a copy of Demonettes can be useful when you're trying to outvalue your opponent. So when you're both kind of low on cards and you're trying to get a card advantage. So when you have a card advantage, you have more freedom of playing your stuff, you know. So if your opponent is out of cards, maybe suddenly he will draw like a 2 mana card on turn 10 and then he's lost, you know. So this is 4/4 is decent stats. I'm not gonna say anything bad. It's better than this one for sure. 3/4 is terrible. Like this Rage, you will not use it 99% of the time. It's gonna die before you get any use out of it, and it's until the end of the turn. So we have 2 Poxbringers, decent 5-drop, and this one is better than the previous deck because it has this card, which is very good. You 99% of the time you don't use the 1 mana mutation because you paid 5 mana to drop a creature, and now you're using 1 mana to give him, like, it's like bringing a machine gun and using it as like as a platform to string for a string for a bow, you know. Like, go ahead and shoot the machine gun instead of using it as a string, as a basis for your bow, you know. So I don't know, like it's like getting out a machine gun and then taking this machine gun and trying to run at your opponent and to hit them in the head with it, you know. So it's not gonna do as much damage as if you just shot it, you know. So you're just, I don't know, like the bow example is better, but you don't want to be paying 5 mana to then use 1 mana to give a mutation, you know. So if you look actually, like you didn't do anything except for spend 6 mana to do like 1 mana effect. So sometimes you will use it, but very rarely, you know. So this one is one of the best Ruinstorm cards, and for the same reason as Chaos Fury, it's 5 mana for 5, but you can give Survivor 2 to it, you can give a Flank, you can give Rage to it, which can be very useful sometimes, you can give a Cleave to it sometimes, very rarely. Cleave is useful on some other creatures. For example, Chaos Fury could use some Cleave. So for example, if you're playing against a Chaos Pawn and he's using Hero Power, right? So he's attacking your face with the Chaos Pawn, his Hero Power Chaos Pawns, and then you can hit with it and take out his 2 Chaos Pawns. It will still have 1 health remaining, and your opponent's board is done. So it's this is one of the best cards. You can give it like whatever you want. Demonic Wings 5/6. You can give it attack. Very rarely, like usually you want like Demonic Wings. Survivor is the best. Ward situationally. This is also this one is a bad card. 5 mana 4/4 and Mark of Chaos, which is very bad, you know. Like this is a very outdated mechanic which needs to be changed. This is a decent card, like Lesser Demon, which costs 2 less. Okay, so maintenance sucks, and you will have maintenance on this Warlord, but it's not gonna since it has 2 mana cost less, it's decent. And 5 mana 4/5, it's for 5 mana 4/5 is decent stats, and that it gives you an extra card which costs 2 less. It's a very nice boon, you know. So I wouldn't shy away from using this. And let's move on to other cards. Okay, so let's see. So we have Bileblade. Okay, so this one is kind of decent, but not this. The main use of this this is, by the way, that if your opponent hits you, his creature dies when your next turn comes. So this is the main use, not you poisoning the enemy, but him poisoning his creatures on you, you know. But since we're gonna be using our Hero Power sometimes in the late game, and this costs 6 mana, it's not the best, you know. So I would rather have Demon's Chosen, which is like super good card. Seekers of Slaanesh, this is a very good card. you take out one of your low cost creatures or something that's about to die, and then you drop it, and it has a fast. So it does 6 damage, you can remove something with it, and you still leave behind a decent creature, which has sneak attack, so he has to remove it. Decent card, I use it in Constructed, 5/7, 7 mana is, of course, like, not, we would rather have 6 mana, 5/7, of course, but it's a good taunt, and the rage is quite handy as well. 7 health for a taunt is very good, not a lot of creatures will be able to kill it, not a lot of spells will be able to kill it. Warmaster's Deceit, kind of expensive removal, but maybe in the late game it will be useful because you're trying to outvalue, right? So this one, maybe in event it will be good, but in Constructed I definitely wouldn't use it because you pay 9 mana for it, which means you will not be doing anything else, and your opponent might just go ham on you, you know? So this is a good addition, but you lose that turn completely because your opponent can just ignore this, right? So if you're already behind, your opponent might use this just to kill you, you know? So you might never get the chance to play it because you always have to stay active interacting with your opponent, you know? So trust me on this, like, most, if you're, this is a decent 9 mana creature, but 9 mana creatures should have a taunt, should do something. The moment you put them down, should have so much threat that the opponent has to think that they have to do it. You know, like Venerable Jafile is, I think, better than this one because it has a taunt, it has a shield, and it gives you a card the moment you put it down. So no matter what, you're going to be getting something in your hand to continue attacking. But of course, even if that one gets, like, imagine you play something that costs 9 mana, you couldn't hero power, you couldn't do anything, and then your opponent just outflanks it or just uses Spear of Telesto for like 3 mana or something because it's turn 9. You're in a desperate situation. So this is the one with which I got like 12 wins 8 times. It's very good, and I will explain why. So Unspoiled Land, card draw, very decent. So we have 19 troops, a lot of them are demons, so we're gonna be getting two of them. This is a very good turn 2 play because on turn 2 we don't have a lot of decent creatures, and this will give us some versatility, you know. So this is something that you always keep in your hand because like almost always keep in your hand because it, like, then you can look at your hand like it's turn 2, okay, so you don't have something to play on turn 3, you use Parting the Veil and maybe you get a Chaos Fury, you know, or maybe you don't have something on 5 mana and you get something else, and it's very versatile. And on turn 2 I would definitely recommend it. It's all about building the board and having the correct creatures, not doing 2 damage to the enemy's face, you know. So Seek and Destroy is very decent removal. Fire Cultist sucks, but sometimes it will do full 4 damage. Like every one of these decks has one terrible card, so this is one of them. Rotfly, I don't count this as a 2-drop because you oftentimes want to use it later, unless your opponent plays something like on turn 2 with 2 health, then of course you play it. This is one of the game-winning cards, of course, so I don't think I have to explain it. By the way, one cool trick: the 2 mana cost Chaos creature, the 2/2 that leaves behind then 1/1. I don't know how it's called. If you kill that, it activates Rotfly. So I don't know if that one is bugged or something, but that's a very neat trick. Not for this event, but in general, you know. So it's a decent card. So let's see the next one. When an enemy dies, put a copy of Mutate. You can get so many mutates in your hand, just ruin your opponent with mutates. Mutate is good. Like, you shouldn't overindulge in using mutates. You're better off just playing 4 mana creature. But sometimes, like, you can put ward on something that's very high health. You can put like a rage on a creature while your opponent has lots of low health minions, and it's gonna just cause havoc, you know. 2/4, very good stats. 4 health is very important instead of 3. Just like 5 is important, like I mentioned in my thread, you know. So Informant Network deals 1 damage, good AoE. So it's not the best, you know, but sometimes it will help you remove stealth, and it's just AoE, you know. It's not bad. So Acrotress, I don't really like it in this event because you're not playing against an Angron who is trying to kill you. You're playing against an opponent who is trying to control the board, you know. So this is one of the main points, and I will show it when I go over some of my older games, that board control in this event matters the most. And 2-3 doesn't really affect the board as much, even though it's not a bad card. So I sometimes throw it away from my hand. So not a very good card, and most of the time I just use it to attack, by the way, because I'm trying to influence the board. So I spoke about this. 2 Chaos Furies, so now we're talking, right? So we have Plague Bearer, we have Rotfly in case the opponent does something stupid on turn 2. No, not stupid, but he just, like, usually you don't want to just drop a 2 health creature on the board and have it die, you know? So you want to have some, you want to take care of the value, you know? Like, you want to have a lot of cards, you want to have more cards than your opponent most of the time, and you do this through correct trading. You do this through not throwing creatures down, through not throwing spells at your opponent's face for no reason, and these 2 cards will help you start gain some board, you know. So Plague Bearer might give you mutate, so maybe sometimes you play Chaos Fury and then the next turn you do Plague Bearer and then mutate, so it's very good. Unrestricted Frenzy, it's very good as well. So we have Chaos Fury, with which it synergizes quite well. We have Path of Blood, we have Plague Bearer, and so it's just a decent card. You don't keep it in your hand. It's not usually a turn 3 play. It's something that you do later just to shock your opponent, you know. So this is something that you have to be very careful with. This is something that I throw away from my hand most of the time. It has 3 maintenance, which means that if you play it on turn 4, the next turn you're gonna have 2 mana, with which in this deck you can pretty much do nothing, right? And if you're playing against Samus and you drop it and he hero powers it, well, he might hero power it for the rest of the game, and he will be using 2 mana to take away 3 mana from you. So even if that's not the case, it has Berserk, so you have to attack with it, you know. So you might do 8 damage to the opponent's face, but if it dies the next turn and your opponent has the board, you are in trouble, you know. So be careful. This is very good in late, like when you're trying to push for the final kill, you know. So like maybe it's turn 10, like turn 15 or something, and you have some 6 mana creature and a 4 mana creature, you know, and you have 1 more creature on the board. That happens quite a lot in this event because, well, I control the board quite well usually, so just kidding. Okay, so yeah, but that's true. Okay, so that's when it's good, but usually, yeah, you don't want to mess with this card, you know. Just, it's decent. If you have nothing else on turn 4, just play it, but try not to. That's what I would say. So try not to, you know. So just use this to pressure your opponent, like in the late game. This is a decent card. We spoke about it. 4 mana, 4/4 is decent. 2 Poxbringers. Our turn 4 is going to be very strong. We have so many good healthy creatures. Defense Satellites, not usually useful because we're trying to have the board, you know, like we don't want to be behind, and you know, like it's a decent card, but you don't keep it in your hand for sure, because even if you clear your opponent's board with it, and it's turn 6 now, your opponent gets to play a 6 mana cost card, and now you're also behind, so you don't want to be in the situation where you're responding to the opponent's threat. You want to be the one who is pressing the advantage, you know. So this is not a manifesto against, as I said, Defense Satellites. Of course, this is used very extensively, but this is a very good card. This is where, like, sometimes, for example, if you're playing against Jophile, you will win the games purely based on value, right? So you will be drawing more cards than the opponent, you will have more cards in your hand, and you will drain your opponent's resources. And this helps you a lot, and 5 mana 4/6 is just very good, you know. So this one is a decent card. It has stealth, it's 5 damage, very rarely used the mutation, but 5 damage, 4 health, it's very healthy. This is one of the best cards in this game, in my opinion, one of the best designed, and this is one of the reasons why Ruinstorm is so strong, and one of the coolest cards in my opinion. I really love it. So when you drop it, it already gives you so much so much versatility, you know. So you might ward it if you put a ward on it against, for example, when I play a construct game against Arasid Nasu, for example, and he's trying to just ping my small creatures, which you have to put down just to for your opponent not to run away with the board, right? Because then you just lose. So you just put this down, maybe you ward it or you put a survivor on it. If your opponent doesn't remove it, you just build it to the point that it's like, and it's not even trolling, you know, like you might have 19 10 creature, or like 10 with 10 survivors, 10 damage 10 survivor, like crazy creature, ward, survivor, rage, cleave as well. And one trick on it, by the way, if you play it and you use flank mutate on it and it turn 10, after you've used flank you can use your mutate twice again and then attack with it. So as you can see, like 2 mana, gain a mutation, connect again, right? So if you flank, you use the mutation, and then you use the mutation, you just got 1 flank and 2 real mutations, and you can take out the opponent's creature, you know. So this is a game winner so many times. So this is also super good removal. This is good in late game. So for example, you're being overwhelmed and it's turn 10. Well, you can just fracture in time and drop Beast of Fire or something, or Pokespringer, and then your opponent is suddenly behind, you know. So this is very different from Defense Satellites, because everybody intuitively understand that you shouldn't play this on turn 6 usually, you know. So and the fact that it's 6 mana card and not 5 mana card is sometimes good, because on turn 6 your opponent might have used so many of his creatures that he will be stunned when you do this, you know. So you might reset it very well. It's just theoretical stuff. So this is a very decent card. 6/4. It doesn't die to Joker Company, which isn't in this game, and you get a chance to do whatever you want with it, you know. So 6 damage for 6 mana, and then it maybe even survive. So decent card. Some Horus decks use it. Harriers of Cygnus Prime, I spoke about it. Very good card, this one, in my opinion. Like of course I said that you don't want your opponent to you don't want to play high mana cost cards, they don't have immediate impact, but this one, Rage is such a good mechanic. Like this is a massive threat, and it's good also because like we take into account what we're playing against. Lots of our opponents are going to have Sanguinary Guard, and if your opponent wants to take this out with Sanguinary Guard, he will have to smack this creature first with the face. They will take 8 damage, so okay, 7 damage and 1 rage, and then Sanguinary Guard will hit it again, and then it will do 1 more rage. So rage is very important. It's one of the best mechanics. Don't overuse it. Focus on stats, but rage is sometimes just game winning, and it just feels good to pull it off very well, you know. So this is also a very good card. So this is the best when you don't have any board, you know. So if you don't have any board, you don't have anything in your hand, you know, and you suddenly draw this, you're set, you know. Like you drop something, you get the 6 mana card that's 6/6, like a rot fly, not rot fly, but the other fly, the 4 mana fly 2/7. You get some other demon. There's also the 5/4 charge demon, not charge but fast demon, and this is just it's gonna give you a lot of maintenance, by the way. So it's not good as the next card that we have on the list, which is Sealed Pact. This is one of the reasons why Jophiel will have a problem with you. So as long as you don't needlessly attack his face, over time you will start to generate more value than him, and your opponent will run out of steam and cards while you will still be going, you know. So that's what we're going to be trying to do against Jophiel, and this one is just perfect for it, you know. So you might even get a couple of taunts from it. You might get something with a flank sometimes. No, not often, because we don't have a lot of flanks here, but this is a game winner. This is not something that you should you should be playing. This shouldn't be your focus, you know, to get a good Sealed Pact, you know. So that's not how it works. This is something that will seal the deal in a lot of matchups, and it's one of the reasons why this impending arrival is so good, you know. So it's not the main reason. We had a lot of main reasons here, so that's how we're gonna use it. So Another thing we have here, so it's very easy to see, right? So this is very good demonstration. This one has decent curve, but it doesn't have a lot of high cost creatures. So, and it doesn't have a lot of card draw, so it's gonna have problems. It doesn't have anything past 6. It doesn't have, like, it has only three cards. None of them are creatures for 5 mana. So no, not as good of a curve. Here you have too many 3-drops, which happens on Kabanda and Ruinstorm quite a lot. This is a decent curve, but even visually, I think this one looks perfect, you know. So you have something to do on turn 2, not as much, but as on turn 3, but still decent, you know. So you have a lot of things you can do, and it has a lot of late game cards which are actually good. So Taunt, Rage, 3 creatures, Sealed Pact, all of them are very good. So very good looking, it even visually looks appealing, you know. So this is something that I'm gonna choose and I'm gonna play later. But for the educational purposes, I think this video is decent. So you try to, if you can have some kind of thematic in the deck, like for example aggro, right? So you have lots of fast creatures, then fine, play it. But here's the difference. Like in constructed play, you oftentimes you put whatever card you want in your deck, right? So you know that the next card that you draw will accomplish the task that you want it to do, you know. But this is not the case in events, because lots of cards are going to be different thematic, you know. So usually you want the creatures themselves to be healthy. So this one has very healthy creatures. It has some kind of thematic. It has the way of responding to aggressive play. It has a lot of value, and it can run away with the games, and it can establish the board control, you know. So when you have board control, you can make the trades that you want to do. Maybe you can do anything that's up to you. And this is a very interesting warlord, you know. So I really like it. It's very funny as well, in my opinion. So just remember, guys, so the stats matter on the cards. So all of the cards here have very healthy stats. Just look at the 4-drops, right? 5 health, 5 health, 4 health, okay, but 4 damage, and an ability, 6 health and 4 damage. Damage of course matters as well. 5/4, very decent. This one is 6/6, but it can be whatever it wants to be, you know. So also very good with stealth, good stats and good ability. Rage, which just impacts the board, and we have something to do on every turn. And we have some overpowered cards like Chaos Fury that will guarantee that even if we don't do anything on turn 2, we will over time start to take over. So yeah, this is how I choose my decks. And in the opposite side, if you're playing Blood Angels, and try to watch out for cheesy cards like the 3/4 that I showed you for 4 mana, the Bloodletter, and try to just go for the one which has the most punch, you know. So 5 mana 5/5, very good. 6 mana 5/6, decent as well. If it's something like 4 mana 3/4, that's something that's not the best, you know. Sometimes you will play it, sometimes it's fine. Even 2/5 is better than 3/4, you know. So out of all the decks, I think Impending Arrival has been the most has been the most consistent for me. I did 8 runs, I think. I kind of lost the count, and I got 12 wins on each one of them. The Berserk Blood Angels guy is also very good. The Outspoken Officer, I got 12 wins on him. One of them was clean sweep, by the way. Like every time I played it, I think 3 times. And Venerable Jophiel has Demon Crusher, which is just like it looks like regular constructed deck, you know. Like it has so many perfect cards that you win very easily, you know. So yeah, that's how I evaluate it. And remember to watch out for remember going first matters, especially in mirror matchups. So you might think that the Berserk guy isn't as good as Jophiel because hero power isn't as good, but sometimes you will find out that just because the opponent goes first, he will overwhelm you, you know. So every time you play a 4 drop, he will drop a 5 drop, and you're always on a chase. So maybe I will go over some games. Maybe I'll do some games on this one. Maybe tomorrow morning. I don't really feel like doing it now. So I have some plays in the history from I think the Jofiel deck, and as well as the Berserk guy. I don't even know what his name is. And I can go over one of the games and I can explain everything, and the gameplay, it matters, you know. So I think not only the deck matters, but also the way you play it, you know. So um, I think I'll finish this one on this note, and later I'm gonna be doing the gameplay, but on Jofiel, I think, first of all. Okay, thank you.